Well, hi there again, everybody. The Gary Neville Podcast, the latest edition, comes from this wonderful Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. But the wonderful football we've really seen is from the opposition today. And it took them a while to produce that. But your immediate verdict on Tottenham 0, Chelsea 3?
I think my immediate verdict is there was only very few Spurs fans in the stadium at the end of the game. I was surprised by the boos. 9 points out of 12. Good start to the season. And I thought they would have accepted that the team did very well in the first half and Nuno had them on the front foot, but they were playing against a top side in the second. So that was my first immediate thought. I was surprised at the boos, but my immediate thought is that Chelsea are a real team. I mean, we knew that anyway, but seen them at Anfield, seen them at Arsenal, I've seen them 3 times this season, I've now seen them away at Tottenham, and everything that you would want in a title-winning team is there. Good defensively, can cope with difficult moments in matches.
And they had a difficult first 20-25 minutes.
They did. I think they were shocked. I was shocked. When I saw the team before the game, I saw the teams before the game, Naz Piliqueta was right wing back, I would expect it to be a lot more cagey. But Tottenham really did go high press, front foot, something that we don't ordinarily see from Nuno's teams. Wolves, he was famed for sort of sitting back in that compact shape. And at Spurs against City a few weeks ago, we saw them be quite pragmatic and go on the counter-attack, but it really was something very different. Kane just to the left. I did think as I was watching it, how will Harry think about that in the long term? He'll go on tonight and think, hang on a minute, was I left wing today? Or certainly left of a front three. I could see why they did it, because he wanted Son to try and isolate Thiago Silva, and then Lo Celso was on the right, in the right channel, and it worked. I think they sacked Chelsea's midfield and back three a number of times, but they didn't get the goal. And I think Nuno's tactic would have been to get in front and then go back and try and catch Chelsea on the counter-attack. They didn't get the goal. Chelsea withstood the pressure. It is very difficult to break down this Chelsea defence, even when you do have the ball and you are creating moments. So credit to Chelsea for that. But I was really impressed with the first half. I know a couple of the lads in the studio said that they didn't think it was the best half. It was a bit disappointing. But I enjoyed it from a tactical point of view in the way in which Tottenham approached the game. But in the end, Chelsea responded, Tuchel responded. The good teams, the best teams do respond. They find a way.
And the best coaches.
And the best coaches. Yeah. Half-time did something that we didn't expect. We thought he might change it, but we thought Kante would come on for one of the midfielders, and he came on for Mount. And goes 5-3-2, and it was a brilliant substitution. Tactically very good, but also in terms of Kante's introduction, obviously scores a goal, but he was just all over them, and Chelsea were rampant for 10 minutes. And the best teams, when they do have good periods in the games, they do capitalise, they do score goals, and Chelsea did just that.
We sort of talked it up as Kane versus Lukaku. It didn't work out that way. Lukaku kept on trying to score right to the end when obviously Chelsea were dominating the game. But what about Harry Kane? There are going to be questions asked. We know he wanted to leave. He hasn't been allowed to do that. He has to dig in. He's a very, very good professional, but it's not easy circumstances to shed that load when your team isn't making a shed load of chances.
No, it's not. And I think that when Manchester City draw 0-0 yesterday and all the talk last evening is around, well, that's because they didn't get Kane, and he knows that. He's probably, like I say, he's professional. You mentioned it towards the end. He's playing for Tottenham and he loves this club. But just being on the left, I did feel in the first half, if this doesn't work, might not go down that well. And I think as soon as Chelsea went 2-0 up, I was watching and thinking he's not going to hang out there on that left much more, for much longer. And Nuno did switch him straight away. He did see the danger of having him out on the left. But when he went central against Thiago Silva, nothing happened. He didn't get any ball in the game. They are difficult circumstances in the sense that he wanted to further his career and win trophies. Harry Kane has chosen this summer to publicise the fact that he wanted to leave and to go and win trophies. And Daniel Levy, Tottenham have decided to keep him, which is their right. He's under contract, he's got many more years to go. But it's never easy when a player wants to leave your club and everybody in the dressing room and in the ground knows that he wants to leave. So if things aren't going well, the statistic before the game that we were given was that Harry Kane last week played his first ever game for Spurs where he didn't have a shot on target. Is that right?
First 90-minute appearance.
First 90-minute appearance where he didn't have a shot on target.
And didn't have a touch in the opposing penalty area.
Yeah, so little things like that start to, I suppose, ring a little bit before the game, alarm bells. And then today I think that there'll be some questions coming out of that game because he looked despondent, I felt, that towards the end. and he was playing against a very, very good team, and he'll have been part of a Tottenham team over the years that will have been in this position whereby Chelsea have a good record, and he'll be thinking, I'm here again, I'm playing at Tottenham, we're not going to challenge for the title, we're probably not going to get into the top 4, and he wanted more. He wanted more. He wanted to go and challenge for titles. And this Chelsea team will challenge for the title. I can't see any way in which they won't. Yeah, of course, you can get injuries. But I just look at the bench. Forget the first 11. They seem to have everything. They seem to have everything. And at this moment in time, I do believe Liverpool aren't quite the team of a few years ago, even though they're very, very good. Quite the squad of a few years ago. City just haven't got that striker, as we know. Manchester United are doing okay, but they're not the team of Chelsea. We saw Manchester United struggle to beat West Ham.
While we were on Manchester United, I mean, that was an extraordinary ending to the game. There were penalty appeals galore, and then VAR overturned Martin Atkinson's first call on the Luke Shaw handball. And to send it brought back for you and me memories of the Euro 2020 final, when England sent on potential penalty takers who'd hardly had a kick at the ball, and Mark Noble hadn't done anything. He came straight from the bench to the spot, and David De Gea did the rest.
Yeah, I think Ronaldo should have had a penalty. I think the Shaw one was right to be overruled. I think it was a penalty. I don't like it. I think Jamie Carragher came on in 2006 in the World Cup, and it's the first time that I've seen it, where a player was brought on specifically just to take a penalty cold, having not had any more part of the game. And, you know, you've not got the feeling of the game, you've not had a touch of the ball, and you're asking someone to come on in the most pressurised situation. Now, Mark Noble does have a good penalty record, and he also has lots of experience. In the summer with Rashford and Saka, obviously players of less experience, and Gareth Southgate took some criticism for it.
And Sancho as well.
But players do have, managers now are more innovative. They are more led by data and stats, and they know everything in terms of how many, penalties are scored by certain players. And, there's no doubt these sort of substitutions wouldn't have happened 25 years ago. Even the players on the pitch would have taken it. But managers do make more of those types of decisions nowadays. He will get some criticism for it, David Moyes, but it is what it is. I'm not going to sit here and criticise David Moyes for it, because if he scores, then he would be seen as being fantastic. We saw, who was it? Was it Louis van Gaal that brought on a goalkeeper?
Yeah, Tim Krul.
To take, cold, having not had any other part of the game, and he was a genius. So we have seen it work in goalkeeping situations. We have also seen it work against in the other way when people have come on and taken them.
Kepa in the Super Cup.
So we have seen it work. But Manchester United were fortunate in the end in some ways. But that's what Manchester United are. The odd bunch that play in moments in games that have got multiple players on the pitch and off the bench. Chelsea today, we watched the full Manchester United game, didn't we? And Manchester United's team performance was nothing like that performance from Chelsea. That's a proper team performance that we've seen from Chelsea. And that's why I say last week and the week before, even though Ronaldo has come to the club and he's had a sensational start, that's why I say I think the team that are best will win the league, because it's my experience.
It should be that, shouldn't it? It's a team game,
It is. If Manchester United are going to win this league, it'll be through momentum, it'll be through moments, it'll be through having so many wonderful players in forward positions, and maybe that just momentum goes with them. But for Chelsea at this moment in time, who are champions of Europe, they are a better team than Manchester United when you watch them, because, I say, our eyes don't lie. And it's fantastic the way in which Manchester United have started the season in the league. They have that difficult moment in Europe the other night. Ronaldo is just so exciting for me, for everybody else, that he's back here.
And what about Jesse Lingard against West Ham?
Yeah, nice.
A ground that really reinvigorated him earlier in the year.
I thought Jesse should leave. I thought Jesse should have left Manchester United. I said that a few weeks ago, because I thought that he should play every single week. He's good enough to play football at the top level every single week. And he's going to be living off moments for Manchester United. But I was happy for him today, because earlier on in the week he made that mistake, and obviously that was picked up on, and it meant that his team didn't win the game. But for him to bounce back in the way in which he has today and score the winner is a fantastic moment for him. He's got good character, he's a very good player, and I think he should be playing 40, 45 games a season. He won't get that for Manchester United this season in terms of 90-minute starts, I don't think. But he's one of those players that I do think Manchester United will benefit from having. I just thought for Jesse himself, he should leave. I remember playing with players at Manchester United like Ji-sung Park who were brilliant in terms of balancing off the other parts of the team. And Manchester United might be better if they've got Ronaldo stood up there up top, movement in the box, not contributing too much defensively. They could be a better team with players like Jesse Lingard in it, because I think that could be the type of player that could make them a better team. It's obviously more exciting to see Pogba and Fernandes and Ronaldo and Cavani and Greenwood and all these players, Martial, Rashford, all play. But can you really create a brilliant team when you've got all those attacking players who haven't got the other side of the game and the balance? Chelsea have a great balance. Manchester United at this moment in time don't quite have that same balance.
I did say in our commentary that I ought to talk to you about Brighton, a team we don't see personally.
No,
we don't see too much
season.
of, but they have had another fantastic result again today. And if there's a champion of the underdog at the moment, it's Graham Potter's team, who could have been manager here, incidentally, who was one of the names in the frame. Yeah,
he was wanted, and I think they're a smart club, Brighton. You know, I was surprised a few years ago when Dan Ashworth left the FA. I thought Dan Ashworth would leave the FA at some point, but I didn't think that he would leave to go to Brighton. I thought he would leave to go to maybe one of the sort of, quote, top 6, top 8 clubs in the league. But he's gone to a very, very good club that's well run, that do the right thing, where you can implement things and processes and systems. And Dan, I think, will be enjoying the job along with Paul Barber, and they've got a good coach in there who will teach the players and coach the players. And you watch Brighton play, they've got an identity.
Goal from Danny Welbeck.
Yeah, Danny Welbeck, excellent player. Obviously had massive injury problems, but he's a very, very good player, Danny Welbeck. And they've got a good system of play. When I watched Brighton last season, I always felt that they could score 5 or 6 goals every game, but didn't have that killer instinct up at the top end of the pitch. But they've had a brilliant start to the season. Who would begrudge them that?
A couple of other things before we go. One, maybe we'll get out the way. Derby County and the Wayne Rooney finding about club management at the very worst possible state in a club, and it's not his fault that he finds the club as it is. What are your feelings about what Derby represent in terms of clubs that have been at the top level, or are desperate to get back into the top level? It's not just Derby, but they've pushed it too far in their efforts, it seems, to regain some status.
Yeah, the chase for this, the Premier League glory, the desperation, the golden ticket. But there are only a few golden tickets, and there are many clubs who want that golden ticket, and not everybody can have it. And the problem is, I think, in football, is that the bottom of the Premier League gets 100 million and the top of the Championship gets under 10. So you've got this huge disparity in terms of the economic pressure that gets put on teams that are down in the Championship.
Owners have a punt then, basically.
And they have a punt because it's a massive gamble, and if it pays off, it works. There have been teams who've done it well, who've gone up and down, who manage the finances. You know, Burnley have been up and down, and West Brom, Norwich, who've sort of done it in a more pragmatic fashion. But then when you get down there and you go down, you stay down, you haven't got the parachute payments to rely upon, you then end up in a desperate situation where you overspend. And that is the problem in English football. And we've seen it with Wigan, with Bolton, with Bury. We've seen it now with Derby County. And the clubs are just going to get bigger and bigger. And, you know, I've been a huge advocate of independent regulation. Somebody looking at the game to protect, actually, what we're seeing at the moment, which I have to say is the best Premier League beginning to a season that I've ever seen. And I've been watching top-flight football for 40 years, you a lot longer. I've never seen quality like this, Martin, from the top clubs, and not just from the top clubs, from the rest of the clubs as well. The stadiums are outstanding. The football is brilliant. I think at the moment, I said on Monday Night Football last week, we could have the 4-5 best teams in the world in our league. We've certainly got some of the best players and the best coaches. And that's where we want the Premier League, with the investment that comes into it. And you remember a few years ago, Martin, when I was doing this podcast with you, I wasn't always saying that. So I will always be truthful. This is outstanding that we're seeing at this moment in time. But what we need to also do is protect against the desperation and be a little bit more compassionate across the whole game, right the way through the game. And we have to make sure that there isn't that desperation. And if owners, like at my club, want to invest, you know, myself included, above the level of revenues that club receives, then they should be obliged to have to cover that revenue, and they should have to sign up to a guarantee or a bond. And there are rules that need to be put in place that football is not capable of governing itself, in my view. It is not capable of governing itself against situations like Derby County, Bury Football Club, Macclesfield, Wigan, I know they're coming out of it, Bolton are coming out of it, but we're going to lose great clubs, and we have to protect against it. And I've called for it for some time. Tracy Crouch has had her review, but this is a desperate situation. Derby County is in a perilous situation, and we cannot see Derby County disappear. Can we see Derby County disappear? One of the great football clubs in this country.
Found a member of the Football League.
Found a member of the Football League could disappear through mismanagement, but because also we allow free reign. Football allows free reign. We know it's a free society. We know we live in a capitalist world, and we expect that owners of businesses look after themselves. But football clubs are more than a business. They are the heart of the community. They mean so much to tens of thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people in each community. And we have to protect against what would be mismanagement, rogue owners, things happening that take away the spirit of the football club away from the people who live in the city or the town or the village. And that protection needs to be put in place. If that protection is put in place, we have a very healthy game in this country, a very healthy game. But there just needs to be that little bit of control that is only going to come through independence. It's only going to come through independence. The turkeys don't vote for Christmas. And we need just a little bit of independence, a little bit of power going back maybe towards the FA that was lost 30 years ago. And there are changes that need to be made, tweaks, changes. Some would say big change. We've had in the last, 18 months, 2 years, Martin, we've had Project Big Picture, we've had the European Super League, we've had Derby County, we've had Bury Football Club a year or so before that. There are enough warning signs here for us to get scared. There are enough warning signs that if we don't act, we will regret it. On the plus side, I will repeat, we have got the most incredible league, football players at this moment in time. It's brilliant. I love watching brilliant football teams. I want my team always to win, Manchester United, but I also respect watching great football teams. You cannot not respect the way in which Liverpool have played in the last 2 or 3 years. Manchester City have played. We're seeing this Chelsea team now grow. Manchester United getting better. And, ultimately, from my point of view, the Premier League has to be the best in Europe because of the fact that the investment that is made into English football is huge at the top level, and we're now seeing it. We've got great managers, and through that we've got great players and we've got great teams.
Can I finish off by talking about a great player that I had the privilege of seeing and you didn't?
Yep.
Jimmy Greaves, who sadly left us earlier today, who was a true legend, and it's a word that's often misused, but at Chelsea and at Tottenham. So in a way, it was an appropriate day for the tributes that have been paid today. When I say Jimmy Greaves to you, what does it mean?
Well, the first thing to say is I knew he was a goal scorer, and you see his record with England. I knew that he missed out in the 1966 World Cup final, which is something that always sort of sticks in my mind. But what blew my mind away today was coming to the game and being given a statistic by a very keen Tottenham fan that me and you both know, who said that the greatest goal scorer in the history of the top 5 leagues, in third place is Jimmy Greaves, only Messi and Ronaldo in front of him. Now, if you said to me, who is the top goal scorer across the 5 European leagues in the history of football,
you'd get Messi and Ronaldo, wouldn't you?
Yeah, you get Messi and Ronaldo straight away, but then you wouldn't put, I wouldn't put Jimmy Greaves behind those two. And that just tells you how great he must have been. I never saw him as a football player. I've seen some goals on the way in today because obviously it's been all over social media. And the speed of movement, the way in which he finished.
He glided over pitches you couldn't glide over.
Yeah, and it seemed ahead of his time. You watch some of the goals and you think, I see goals like that out here. And this age-old argument of could he have played today? Of course he could. With modern nutrition, modern sports science, any great player of the previous years would have been able to play today, of course, with the pitches and the conditions that we have.
But you saw him as a man, as a television pundit and the co-presenter of the St. and Greaves as you were growing up.
That is my experience of Jimmy Greaves, of watching him with Ian St. John. And the picture that I don't ordinarily post out pictures of people that I don't know on social media when they pass away, because I always feel like, I didn't know them, but I felt like I knew Jimmy Greaves. He was a massive part of my childhood. I saw Jamie Carragher post out earlier a number of other players of my era who grew up with Jimmy Greaves, St. and Greavesy on our sort of lunchtime television. I know you were part of that show, and it was special. I've always watched live football, it takes a lot for me to watch a non-live football
A
programme.
sort of magazine show.
A magazine show. That is the only programme that I've ever watched consistently that I would make sure I was actually in for every single week would be St. Greavesy. I absolutely loved it. Football, personality, character, humour. A huge part of my upbringing, the enjoyment of football was Jimmy Greaves. We didn't always have the live football that we have on now as well, but it was a massive part of my childhood in terms of sort of the understanding of the game, you know, what football is, and he touched everybody, I think. Like I say, the ones in the sort of watched him in the 60s and 70s, and those will have great memories of Jimmy Greaves as a player. But those that watch football sort of in the sort of 80s and 90s will remember him for a different reason, and that's really important that he touched sort of across 4 or 5 decades how important he was to so many people, and it was a really sort of, like I say, the fact that he passed away today on a day where Spurs and Chelsea was playing, in some ways, like you say, it's quite fitting, and there was a great sort of tribute to him before the game from both sets of fans, and say, sad day, but also a day in which it felt a bit more like a celebration, because when I watched Jimmy Greaves on television, it always felt that there was humour and enjoyment, and I think that was a little bit of how it was today, sort of remembering him fondly and how he was, and people remember him as a football player, but people remember him also as a broadcaster.
Great people. Saint and Greavesy back together again in a better place. Rest in peace.
Thank you, Martin.
Thanks, Gary.